Mr. Johnson, please. Harvey, this is Dave Taylor. I just wanted to remind you of the meeting tonight at the shelter. No, only those staff members who'd be directly involved with the initial entry of the shelter will be there. Well, there's you as operations deputy, Bill Sherman, our supply and maintenance chief, Mrs. Carter, our health and sanitation team leader, and Walter Miller, the new communications man. Joe Cook, our deputy for information and training, is sick and he can't make it. No, you don't have to bring anything, Harvey. We'll have clipboards and writing materials in the shelter for you, and you can make a few notes tonight. All right, fine. We'll see you at 7:30. Goodbye now. Mr. Robbins, this is Dave Taylor, the manager for your shelter. I sent you a letter about assisting Joe Cook with information and training. Well, Joe's sick, and I was wondering if you could make a meeting tonight. Oh, well, this won't be our only meeting, Mr. Robbins. The next one's in 2 weeks. How about coming over and meeting the rest of the staff then? All right, fine. Look, I'll check with you again in about 10 days. All right, goodbye. Oh, have a good trip. Right.
Oh, hi, Dave.
Hi, Harvey. Nice to see you. Planning or socializing?
A little of both.
Oh, hey, Mrs. Carter.
Hi.
Bill.
What's in the jug?
Oh, coffee for everybody.
Good.
Walt Miller not here yet?
Who's that, Walt Miller?
The young fellow works at the Circle Radio TV shop. He's our new communications man. Yeah, let's wait outside for him.
Say, Dave, I was thinking about entry. That's our subject for tonight. I ought to place a member of my security team right here in this doorway to keep an eye on what people are bringing along. And you'll have to be firm about what comes in. I take it that furniture and large boxes of personal effects will have to be left outside here.
That's right, Harvey. You can judge for yourself what's going to take up room and be a real nuisance in a crowded shelter and plan for it. If you can get rid of those things at the door, it'll be a lot easier than dragging them back outside later.
I thought of something else. Why don't you have your wife at the door, Harvey? She could give some help to the women, and she gets along pretty well with children. Make people feel better seeing her here.
It wouldn't hurt to have another woman familiar with staff activities to help out Mrs. Carter anyway.
I think Hazel would like to be included. I'll tell her when I get home.
Fine.
Give her my love.
I will.
Oh, hello, Walter.
Oh, I'm sorry I'm late, Mr. Taylor.
That's all right. I'd like you to meet Mrs. Carter, our health and sanitation
How do you
team
do?
leader.
How are you, Miss Carter?
Harvey Johnson, operations deputy.
Oh, I know, Mr. Johnson.
Good. And Bill Sherman here in charge of supply and maintenance.
Well, good
Hi,
to know you.
sir. I know you.
All right, let's get started, huh? Oh, this is the key to the door with a couple of extras. We'll give one to you, Harvey.
Thank you very
Bill,
much.
you get one, too. And we'll have to decide on another place to keep one in case any of us don't make it. All right, let's go inside.
Let me try mine, huh?
Be my guest.
Oh, thank you.
Walter, you want to join us at the table, please? All right. The things we're going to discuss on the areas you particular people represent. The rest of the staff isn't here. I thought tonight we should become generally acquainted with the shelter and with the supplies and equipment we'd be working with immediately upon entry. Also what our function should be at that time. As a matter of fact, that's the first important point. You know, any one of you may have to act as shelter manager.
Yes, we should all be capable of filling each other's jobs, just in case one of us doesn't get here.
That's it exactly, Harvey. Now, here is the organizational chart for our shelter. It shows our jobs and our relationship to each other. And this is the order we'd move up to fill any vacant spots in case any of us should fail to arrive. Here are some copies of that for you, which you may have. As an example, we should all know what medical supplies are available. If, for instance, Mrs. Carter doesn't arrive. Now, she happens to be a nurse, but we may have to find someone with first aid training from among the shelter occupants. Also, we could fill any of these slots by selecting people from the shelter.
I can teach everyone what they need to know about operating the radio.
Okay, Walter, that's what we're here for. But tonight I thought we'd just have a general kind of orientation. I don't want to make this too long, but I do want to be sure that each of us understands the other's job. All right, let's go through the shelter now and check out the various duties. I'd like you each to explain your own as you know them. First,
Oh, somebody's duty ought to be to get this place cleaned up, get these nails and scrapes out of here.
I'll take care of that.
this is the administrative packet, which will be kept on the shelf here. The first one of us to arrive during an attack should immediately get this packet and follow the instructions inside. You'll find certain items which we've put in here. You have stationery, tablets, pencils, pens, erasers, and so forth.
David, you've already got the registration form.
Yes, and this is important. The registration form should be filled in as quickly as possible by all the occupants. Here is a list of the various technical references we have in the shelter: medical, guide to shelter management, and other civil defense manuals. Our log journal, which will be kept by the administrative clerk, and 2 copies of the shelter operations plan, how we will operate and what we will do.
Dave, I think we should post the organization chart, the SOPs, and the staff duties, along with a map on the bulletin board.
That's a good idea, Harvey. Let me make a note of it. Now, we've all seen the shelter already, but let's all walk through together now. Now, this door is the primary entrance and exit for the shelter itself. Just outside this door in the hallway, the radar monitors will check for contamination of personnel and equipment. Harvey, you'll have a member of the security team here to direct incoming occupants and keep count as we discussed outside, right? I'll try to be here or nearby myself.
Harvey, I've been thinking about strangers to the community who might find themselves here. Well, if you direct them to me or to some of us who live around here and already know each other, it would be a start toward cooperation and kind of making them feel welcome.
That's a very good idea.
Look, if anybody else has any other ideas, keep bringing them up as we go along. All right.
This is a special chest for valuables and any dangerous items that occupants may bring in upon arrival. Things such as pocket knives or weapons will be left here and a receipt will be issued. That is also part of the security job.
Keeping you pretty busy doing entry, huh, Harvey?
That's right.
Now, communications. As you see, we have a telephone and a small radio transmitter receiver. Walter?
Okay. This is a CB transceiver model S1050 with a frequency range of 26.956 megacycles to 22.255 megacycles, divided into 13 unique channels and utilizing 6 fixed crystal channels for
Walter.
transport. This is a power plug. This is the outlet. And you just plug it in here and then turn it on here. It'll also operate with batteries. Our first job when we get here should be to try to make contact with the control center, either by telephone or by radio. So somebody should be standing by in case I'm not here. We should try to contact control center immediately and let them know our situation.
Okay. Any questions?
Not for me.
We'll have complete practice and technical sessions later, Walter. Now, the telephone is our main line of communication. If it doesn't work, then the radio is our backup. All right, Bill, how about supply?
Well, over here we have containers of government food, health and medical supplies, according to the capacity of the shelter. Also some extras we put in there. We will have to get rid of those crates. Now, the first thing when you enter during an attack, you must check over these supplies. On the bulletin board will be an inventory of all the supplies and equipment in the shelter. Now, those must be checked over, too. And the supply team will issue anything that's needed immediately for food, sanitation, or any of the extras I mentioned. The medical supplies are Mrs. Carter's, by the way.
Well, this is a standard medical kit, and it's more than adequate for handling the more common illnesses and injuries. Also, inside are booklets on the treatment and use of medicines. Now, the sanitation team will be responsible immediately for assigning people to keep this place clean and for putting into effect rules for sanitation and personal hygiene.
Another important point when the shelter is entered. Check power, water, sanitary facilities, and emergency items. Be sure that everything is working. Also check heating and ventilation. And this must all be done immediately in case we have to send someone outside the shelter to make repairs. I want to do it before fallout radiation arrives.
Of course, radiological monitoring and checking will take place right after entry. Now, Joe Cook isn't here tonight, so except for information, that just about sums up the various staff duties on entry. Why don't we go in and sit down and discuss it further? As a last thing tonight, I'd like to go over the initial duties of the shelter manager. As I said, any one of you may have to act in that capacity. The manager's primary duty is to coordinate all shelter activities and to make final decisions when necessary, not becoming so involved in every tiny detail in each case that he can't be objective. The manager should establish his authority immediately upon entry by introducing himself. And since he'll be one of the few persons who knows what to expect, he should display confidence and relative calmness.
Well, as we all should.
Then, as soon as possible, the manager should get the attention of the entire shelter group and speak to them, reassuring them of their safety from radiation, as long as they remain within the shelter, and also what to expect while in here.
Well, the more the occupants know about the shelter and shelter living, the more confident they'll be.
Right, Harvey. So, one of our first duties is an orientation for the occupants to help them get settled and learn where everything is. Then I'll introduce each of you and explain your specific duty. I'll make it clear that our shelter offers us adequate protection. Our supplies and equipment are adequate, and they certainly should know this. Then we'll give them a briefing on our standing operating procedures, rules for safety and health, and a tentative daily schedule. The registration form should be filled in as quickly as possible by all the occupants. The administrative clerk will collect them and analyze them so that the occupants can be given responsibilities.
We'll also want them to start thinking about representatives to the advisory committee.
Then we'll make a firm daily schedule through discussions with the advisory committee and the entire shelter group. Now, we'll have a copy of this in the administrative packet for your reference. I hope you'll think about what we've talked about tonight and come up with some additional ideas. Especially develop in your own minds what you're going to do first upon entry. As a matter of fact, I think it'd be a good idea right now if you'd make some notes on your specific activities based on what we went through tonight. Now, first, remember the administrative pack with the standing operating procedures and the registration forms. Next, keep in mind security watch at the door. We want to be certain all the people get in and settled as quickly and calmly as possible. Also, Harvey, the safety chest for valuables and any dangerous items. Then, we have the telephone and Walt's radio set for communications, making contact with headquarters as soon as possible.
Although Mr. Sherman is in charge of supplies and facilities, remember that Mrs. Carter has to check all the medical supplies and the sanitation setup right away. We have to know that everything is in place and in working order.
I'm sure each one of you could do a creditable job as acting shelter manager, and I'm sure you'll cooperate with me or whomever takes my place. If I'm late, I'll simply take up where the acting shelter manager left off.
I think we're pretty well squared away for the first meeting, David.
David, is this supply list complete to date?
Yes, it is, Mrs. Carter. Oh, one more thing before you go. Here's a list of various items we might want the people to bring in if they care to. Things like blankets, extra food, and so forth. Why don't you all just take a copy? Okay, that just about wraps it up. We'll all meet here together with Mr. Robbins in 2 weeks at 7:30 on the 23rd. I'll give you a phone call on the Monday of that week just to remind you. Good night, Bill.
Bye, Dave.
Thanks for coming.
Good night,
So long,
David.
Harvey.
So long,
Bye,
Dave.
Bye-bye. Bye, Walter. See you again.
Thank you.